Yeah. Okay. Hey, you add too much sugar to tea. Anyway, tzedakah, Mashiach, safety, good things. Please do so at home. Okay, continuing the Sikha. So, what did Chassidus, what did Yechida vivify and enlighten and illuminate the simple level of Maidani? The simple level of Maidani is, I thank you, Hashem, for returning my soul. Chassidus doesn't change anything on the simple level of Maidani. All Chassidus does is highlight. It highlights the word nishmasi, my soul. Thank you for returning my soul, the soul of a Jew. Because if you were to give me any other soul that would just allow me to be alive, but not be a Jew, I would not thank you. Because from the level of Yechida, which is united and connected with Hashem, there's such a sensitivity that I don't want anything else besides a connection with Hashem. And if I had a soul just to be alive and not have a connection with Hashem, God forbid, I don't want that. So I wouldn't thank you. Okay, now we're going to explain the story. But before we explain the story, that we're the story of Rabbi Kusil Lepler, we have to tell the story, right? So let's see inside. Brackets over here. It's a parenthetical statement, but it helps. It juices up this learning. So the Rebbe says like this: "V'keyedua hasipur mehachosid Rabbi Kusil Lepler." Like it's known, the famous story about the Chassid, the follower of the Alter Rebbe, whose name was Rabbi Kusil Lepler. Lepler was his last name. I don't know if it's really a last name, but this is probably where he's the city where he was from. This was common back then, that wherever your city you were from, that's your name became. And his first name is Kusil. So Shekesherotza Admor Hazokin Leberchoy Be'arichus Yamim. There was one time, I'm sure there's a backstory to it, I don't know the backstory, that the Alter Rebbe wanted to bless Rabbi Kusil Lepler with Arichus Yamim, long life. It's a beautiful blessing. Some people live to have a short life. He wanted to bless him to have a long life. Omar. So before the Alter Rebbe blessed Rabbi Kusil Lepler, Rabbi Kusil said, quote, in Yiddish, Aber nit mit poyeshe yorin, loichai ikar, was einayim lehem velo yiru, aznayim lehem velo yishmo, men zet nit ken getlichkeit, und men hert nit ken getlichkeit, she'ein roim, v'shem elikus. What was his response? Alter Rebbe said, I want to bless you with long life. And Rabbi Kusil Lepler said, whoa, Rabbi, let me make, before you start giving blessings, let me make a condition with you, okay? This is a conditional blessing. I only want the blessing, he said, I want the blessing, but not, he said, I want the blessing for long life, long years, but not with peasant years. I don't want peasant years. That peasant years are those that they have eyes, but they don't see. They have ears, but they don't hear. They don't see godliness, and they don't hear godliness. That was his request. He made a request. The Alter Rebbe wanted to bless him with long life, and he said, but I don't want peasant life. I don't want life that has no connection with godliness. Asks the Rebbe, seemingly this is quite shocking. Surprising. Here's the general rule with people in life and just being, an upright person, a mensch. If someone says to you, I want to give you a gift. Give you a gift of $100. And you say, I'll only take it if it's 500. You can't do that. Somebody's giving you a gift. You accept the gift. Done. Okay? You don't want the gift. That's a different story. But to request something bigger and not be satisfied, that's improper. So, being that long life on its own is something very, very big. Imagine somebody were to live 50 years, and instead they were going to receive a blessing to live for 60 years or 75 years. That's incredible. That's crazy. That's great. It's called and especially as we said earlier, that the pleasure, the benefit of living includes within it all other benefits and pleasures. How is Rabbi Kusil making conditions on the blessing? He said, Alter Rebbe says, I want to give you a long life, blessing for long life. And he said, but what kind of life? I want a life that's proper, where you seek godliness, you hear godliness, connection with Hashem. That's something better than just long life. But that's not seemingly correct. That's not the way you should be doing things. You don't request something bigger when somebody wants to give you a gift. So based on what we said earlier about the Yechidah, the sensitivity of Yechidah, this helps us explain the story and understand the story. But the explanation in this is like so. What was Rabbi Kusil Lepler asking? He wasn't asking, Alter Rebbe, you want to give me a blessing for this much? I want a blessing for this much. More than that. No. He said, I want that the blessing should actually be a blessing. Because if you just bless me with long life, just living, for me, that's not a blessing. I don't want it. If you want to bless me with life that's a connection with Hashem, then I'm interested. He wasn't asking for a bigger blessing, he was asking for a blessing. It should actually be a blessing. Ki hoya munach abgelegt atzlei bepashtus. Because it was his mindset, his default mindset was with a simplicity. Shekol mitzius hachayos huriius ushmias elikus. Life means seeing and hearing godliness, having a connection with Hashem, feeling a connection with Hashem. That's life. Anything other than that is not life. V'lachin hisna aber nit payisher yar. Kiyamim v'shanim she'ein roim b'shem melekus lahayu nechshavim etzli l'mitzis klal v'adraba moas b'yamim v'shanim kelu. Therefore, he made a condition, but not with peasant years. I don't want a life of peasant years. Because days and years where one does not see or hear godliness, by him, they're not something at all. They're not a thing. They're not important. They have nothing to them. On the contrary, he was disgusted by such a thing. It's like telling the prince, okay, prince, you're going to live. We're going to feed you in a barn with the animals. What do you mean? It's life. He's eating, he's sleeping, he gets to relax. This is life. But for a prince, and I mean, I think most human beings, that's not life. Life is much more than that. So for Rabbi Kusil Lepler, who was such a devoted, such an involved, sensitive chassid, for him, it was so obvious and so clear to him that anything less than a life of connection with Hashem is not life. That was his sensitivity. Okay, now out of the brackets, in other words, we're continuing the discussion that we started. This feeling, this sensitivity that I want my soul, the soul of a Jew, which is connected with Hashem, not anything less than that, not a life where it's just I'm alive, I have a soul. This sensitivity comes from the revelation of the level of Yechidah specifically, from the essence. Why? From the perspective, from the sensitivity of the lower four levels of the soul, nefesh, ruach, neshama, and chaya. Being that they are defined, they're described, they are... I'm trying to find a good word for this. They're formed in a particular form. They're conformed, that's a good word. They're conformed to a particular form. For example, intellect, emotions. Okay, so for example, ruach, the level of ruach, the second level up, is associated with emotions. Neshama is associated with the mind. Okay, being that they are conformed to a particular form, they're their own thing, emotions, intellect, and so on and so forth. There's the thing itself, the emotions, and the godliness involved there on that level of soul is almost like an additional thing to it. Okay? In other words, on the lower levels of soul, there's me and there's godliness. There's me and Hashem. We're two distinct things. Automatically, being that each on these lower levels, there's the thing as it is on its own, and then there is its connection with Hashem. They're two distinct things. Automatically, there is space, at least on a minute, subtle level, for living a life that there is no hearing or seeing godliness. And it's okay. I can live on my own without seeing and hearing godliness, without having connection with Hashem. That's on the other four levels of the soul. Not so with the level of the Yechidah, with the essence of the soul, that the whole definition of the Yechidah is that it is united with Hashem's essence. It has no other definition. The other levels of the soul, they have their own definition. It's an emotional thing, it's an intellectual thing, it's something deeper than that. The level of the Yechidah, its definition is that its whole identity is that it's united with Hashem. So, ein ba shum nesinas makom l'shum inyan zlas barich. For the level of Yechidah, there is nothing else on its radar. There is no space for anything else besides for Hashem. Therefore, it results in this sensitivity of I want my soul, the soul of a Jew. Okay, that was the simple level of Maidani, as it was illuminated by Chassidus. Stepping it up a level, going to the level of Remez. And here how the Rebbe describes. Now we just explained Maidani according to Chassidus on the simple level according to Chassidus. But here how the Rebbe describes what we just went over. It's interesting. We're in section 13. Just as we saw in the level of the simple level of Maidani, we saw that Chassidus doesn't add an additional explanation to the simple level of Maidani. It's not like there's the simple level of the simple literal explanation of Maidani, and Chassidus comes and adds another layer, another explanation, another interpretation to the simple level. That's not what happened at all. Because even according to Chassidus, the way it explains the simple, the literal level of Maidani, it still has the same translation. You're thanking Hashem for your soul. On the level of Maidani, in the simple level, I thank Hashem for my soul. And the way Chassidus illuminates it, it's still the same explanation. I thank Hashem for my soul. What's the difference? All the Chassidus does, what Chassidus does is that it illuminates, it clarifies, it shines this explanation itself through highlighting, through emphasizing what is a soul, what is the life of a Jew, and what are you thanking for, what is worthy of being thankful for. Again, so Chassidus didn't change the translation. Because Maidani means, I thank you for my soul. According to Chassidus, nothing changed. I thank you for my soul. The only thing you're the only thing you're lighting up is, I thank you for my soul, not another soul. That was Vartan. No, I don't know what. Okay, that was Vartan. So too is on the next level of interpretation of Maidani, level of Remez, hinting, allusions. Hadrush v'hasoy b'Maidani, and the drush and soy, the Kabbalah of Maidani. Chassidus meira umavhira sapirushim ela asmam. The Chassidus illuminates and clarifies these explanations on their own. The Chassidus is not going to change or add to the translation or the interpretation of these levels. Rather, it is going to keep them as they are, but to illuminate them. We'll start on the Remez. It's a little bit involved. Okay. Remez shebachzoras hanashama b'bayker l'tchias amesim b'li habir shechassidus hu remez rochik b'yosel l'chayra. Again, we said in a previous class that questions help us gain clarity and help us gain depth, especially with Chassidus. That helps us introduce a deeper layer of enlightenment into the explanation. On the hint level of Maida'ani, what did we say that was? That Hashem returning our soul to our body in the morning hints to us the idea that Hashem is going to return our souls to our bodies by the resurrection of the dead. Because, what was the basis of this explanation? Because sleep is 1/60th of death. So this hints to when Mashiach comes by the resurrection of the dead, Hashem is going to return our souls to our bodies in not a 1/60th version of death, but a full-fledged death. He's going to return the souls to those dead bodies. That is the hint. That Moeda'ani alludes to the resurrection of the dead. Says the Rebbe, without the explanation of Chassidus over here, this allusion is very far-fetched. Very far-fetched. Seemingly, Hashem returning our soul to our body in the morning, Hashem returning the soul to a dead body by the resurrection of the dead, although they sound very similar, they're actually very, very radically different. How so? In addition to the, first of all, basic idea that Hashem, that sleep is only 1/60th of death, and it's not actual death. They're very different things. A person who's sleeping is not actually dead. In addition to this, mainly, what happens when Hashem returns your soul to your body in the morning? All that happens is Hashem takes the soul and returns it to a body. It's connecting the soul to the body. That's it. That's it. It's a big deal, but I'm saying in this context, that's it. But the novelty, what's going to happen by the resurrection of the dead, is not just simply going to be a soul that exists and a body that exists and putting them together. It's going to be a novelization, a renewal in both soul and body independently. Okay, this is going to be, like I said, it's going to be a lot, very involved. We're still in the middle of the question, so we'll pause here. Tomorrow, God willing, we'll restart this conversation about the resurrection of the dead, and we'll understand what they're asking, and we'll see how Chassidus illuminates this explanation. So we'll see how the hint of Moeda'ani, thank Hashem for returning the soul in the morning, to the explanation, and the idea that Hashem is going to return the souls to the dead bodies, is actually not far-fetched, actually very, very much related and very much connected. Have a great day.